Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is EGYDIA SAFITRI and my official number is A1M219090. I'm from group 6. I will explain about diachronic psycholinguistics. Diachronic linguistics is a branch of linguistics that describes the structure of language that live in two or more periods. The resulting description of each of these periods are usually compared with one another, resulting in a branch of diachronic comparative linguistics. Linguistics examines language without any time limit. It's vertical because it makes comparison of language from time to time. Is historical and comparative development and structural change of language can be clearly identified. Diachronic linguistic features. A. The development of the Malay language at the beginning until now. B. Development of the Sanskrit language from the beginning of its appearance to its extinction. And then C. The development of the Indonesian language from its inception to the present. In this section, we discuss a variety of topics, all of which have in common the fact that they involve comparison between two or more stages in language development. Attention is first directed toward development of language behavior in the individual member of a speech community. First, language learning. A general theoretical model of the process is described. Possible experimental analogy is suggested, and various research problems are discussed. A second topic is second language learning and bilingualism. The third general topic in this section is language change. Although this term refers to the speech community rather than the individual, it will become apparent that the process at work have their logic in the nervous system of many similarly constituted individuals. The treatment of each of these problems is psycholinguistic, in that relationship between the changing structures of message and changing behavioral organization of message user are stressed. And the underlying components of these problems will be apparent from the reference of identical principles, chiefly learning principles. So that's all about my explanation. The next material will be explained by my friends.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is JULIANITIA SAPUTRI and my official number is A1M2 19092. And I'm the second speaker. My friends before explain about what is diachronic psycholinguistics. And now I will explain about the first language learning. Learning a first language is an amazing accomplishment. It is a learning task perhaps like no other. At the onset of the language learning essay, a child has much to determine about the language that he or she hears. At the end of the journey, every child who is not cognitively impaired has an intake linguistic system that allows him or her to interact with others and to express his or her need. First language acquisition is the language that children acquire in their first year of life. Children acquire language without overt instruction. It is an innate predisposition to children. Even though this is not enough, we can say that this is called language faculty. The faith that every human being is endowed with language. Stark, 1986, in Harley 2198 said, "Children are not born silent. Of course, they make are known as vegetative sounds from the beginning. They cry and burn and making shaking noises. Around 6 weeks of age they start cooing, and from about 16 weeks old they to laugh. Between 16 weeks and 6 months in vocal play. This involves making speech-like sounds. Vowels emerge before consonants. From about the age of 6 to 9 months, infants start babbling. This is all about the first language acquisition of human for communication. Strategies in language learning, or the steps that one take to learn a language, is very important in ultimate language performance. It is defined as specifications, behaviors, steps, or techniques such as seeking out conversation partners or giving oneself encouragement to tackle a difficult language task, used by students to enhance their own learning. Scarcella and Oxford, 1992, page 63. There are 6 strategies that learners use when learning a language. The strategies include the first, memorize, and the second one is cognitive, and the third is comprehension, and the fourth is metacognitive, and the fifth is affective, and the last is social. This section attempts to apply learning theory to the development of language behavior. The major concern will be with modifications produced by the actions of persons in a given language speaking culture in setting up models of verbal behavior, administering reinforcement, and etc. This account does not give attention to the mutational or genetic features which presumably operate across all cultures and may influence rates of development, sequence, individual difference, and the like. Findings in the area of motor skill development mark this as an important area of research, and it is being carried on by such men as Jacobs, Leopold, Gregorich, Ohnesauk, and Cohen.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is USRIANI with name A1M219072. I will explain about second language learning and bilingualism. Okay, just go ahead. Second language learning and bilingualism. When, after becoming a practical expert in his own first language, a person starts learning a second language, new sets of decoding and encoding habits are being formed in competition with the old. When the bilingual shift from language to language, similarly to system of decoding and encoding habits come into conflict to a greater or lesser degree. The fact that the same general principles found be important elsewhere in this section also are significant have justified discussing second language learning and bilingualism in the present context. The term bilingual refers to individuals who can function in more than one language. The category of bilinguals is very broad, encompassing individuals who are sophisticated speakers, readers, and writers of 2 or more languages, as well as those who use a limited knowledge of a second language, L2, for purposes such as work or schooling, and who might be literate in only one language or even completely illiterate because of the consequence of colonization, migration, nation formation, tradition of exogamy, and modernization. Some degree of bilinguals is typical of most people in the world. Bilingualism is often the product of second language L2 learning after the first language L1 has been acquired either through non-tutor exposure or through instruction. Individuals can become bilingual at any age, depending on when the need to learn the L2 emerges or when instruction becomes available. In some cases, talk bilingualism is a characteristic of a child's earliest language system. For example, children growing up in bilingual households where both parents speak two languages regularly, or where each parent speaks a different language, are typically bilingual from the very beginning of language acquisition. Children growing up with parents who speak a minority language within the larger societal context may also be natively bilingual if visitors, neighbors, television, regular caretakers, and other sources make the majority language available.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ANDI HASBIYA. My registration number A1M29082 and I'm from class D. Okay, here I will explain about compound and coordinate language system and grammatical and skill levels. The first, compound and coordinate language system. But second, language learning and bilingualism involve the acquisition and utilization of two linguistic codes. The message produced into two or more language amply differently constituted and organized units, different grammatical rules, and different and equally arbitrary lexical system, accepting associational cognates. To the extent that phonemic systems are different, two sets of differentiation and consensus on the decoding side and two sets of vocalic skill component on the accounting side have to be maintained, since the entire system and dispositional integration have to be established. And since the lexical aspect of message into language are different, alternative sets of semantic decoding and encoding habits have to be maintained. In other words, alternative sets of association between message even is the representational system or meanings. Perhaps because of dependence on the model provided by second language learning in school situation, many writers tend to have assumed that meanings are constant in second language and learning and bilingualism. The meaning of the object hers remains the same as perceptually experienced. Hence, the meaning of its alternative linguistic scheme, hers or private, must be the same although is involved is two systems of coding the same meaning. This is the case under certain circumstances which establish what we shall call a compound language system. Okay, next, grammatical and skill levels. We have emphasized the semantic aspect of second language learning and bilingualism because these aspects have been relatively neglected. There is a great deal of careful analysis information on paralinguistic aspects of bilingualism, phonemic, morphemic, and grammatical interaction, and the like. Grammatical aspects shall be particularly profitable to study from this standpoint, being organized largely on sentence level on the basis of transitional redundancies. This aspect of accounting shall be especially difficult to learn and once learned shall be equally difficult to suppress when trying to master a second language. For the coordinate bilingual, on the other hand, two alternative grammatical systems once established shall provide for greater stability and independence between the two language systems.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is APRITA SORAYA. Here I want to talk about language change. Language change is the process of change that occurs in language elements over time. Language change is a subdiscipline of comparative linguistics. This science talks about the process of language development from the very beginning of its existence to its current state, as well as the mechanisms involved in it. The nature of language change studies is to move from the past to the present. Language change in response to both internal dynamic and external pressures. Psycholinguistics are interested in both processes, but the present analysis concerns the former, the existence of similar force operative under similar conditions. Every word in language is indicated by the existence of a limited number of types of change which occur in different, historically unconnected language and at different chronological periods. Linguists have accumulated an enormous amount of authenticate information relating to such changes and have been able to formulate a number of principles regarding the cause of specific change. The psychologist, in line with his general orientation, is typically interested in the why there is. In this selection of general principles of behavior underlying shift in linguistic habits, no doubt the interplay of factors in any particular instance is too complex to allow of complete explanation is the foreseeable future. But this doesn't mean that there are no general laws whose combination limit the possibilities to the point where at least statistically probable outcomes may be hypothesized. A striking fact about language change is that although both change of form and those of meaning are always proceeding simultaneously, each can be exerted by analysis as a set of separate and statistically independent processes. Nevertheless, they do impinge in each other at a few points. Each of these two major areas of change, the formal in which will be include both phonological and grammatical, change, and the semantic will here be given separate treatment in each of these two major areas. Tentative generalization concerning the facts of change based on linguistic data will be followed by a discussion of the physiological mechanisms which may be suggested as operative in bringing them about.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is YUNDAYANA and my registration number is 81M219080. Formal change. Linguistic fact change in the phonemes, the basic unit of the sound system of language, might involve replacement of one phoneme by another, loss of phonemes, transposition of metathesis, insertion of a phoneme. This type have been stated in decreasing order of frequency of occurrence, replacement being by far the most common. Change in the phonemes might further be classified as a regular or sporadic. A change is irregular if it affects all instances of giving phoneme under specified condition. Otherwise, it is sporadic. An example of sporadic change in the development of Spanish from Latin, R was replaced by L in the word arbol, that means tree, earlier arbor. In case of sporadic change, reference to specific instance is unavoidable. Regular change are in the term divided into unconditioned and conditioned. In unconditioned change, all instances of phonemes are affected without limiting condition. A conditional change involves only some of occurrence of phonemes under state limitation in the terms of other phonemes or position in adherence. In the above paragraph, the first change mentioned is unconditional. The second, conditional. Unconditional change tend to occur in sets. What is involved is the replacement of some one distinct feature common to a number of phonemes by another distinct feature in all its occurrence. Sometimes such changes are, as it were, reserved in midstream. After affecting one or more phonemes, the older form resets itself in some instance and the result is somewhat recurrent. Two types of result might be distinguished here. Either a phoneme or group of phonemes through a change in the feature might give rise to sounds which did not previously occur in the language, or change might be the sounds which already do exist. In the former, eventually, no change in the phoneme inventory or number of phonemes or distribution or occurrence in particular forms result. In fact, some would call such a change phonetic rather than phonemic. It can be concluded that the more uncommon a phoneme is a human speech in general, the more likely it is to be merged with another phoneme. The lower the frequency of phoneme in a given language, the more likely it is to merge with another phoneme, providing the second phoneme is not itself excessively high frequency. The closer the point of articulation shared by two phonemes, the more likely they are to merge. The more distinct features shared by two phonemes, the more likely they are to merge. The last one, the fewer the pairs of different linguistic forms which are distinguished by the phonemes, the more likely they are to merge.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hey everyone, my name is DIAN. My registration number is M1M21908TH. I'm from group 6. Today, I want to explain about my material. My material is semantic change. Semantic change is a form of language change reading the evolution of word usage. The evolution of word usage usually to the point that the modern meaning is radically different. In Diachronic or historical linguistics, semantic change is change in one of the meaning of a word. Every word has a variety of sense and connotation which can be added, removed, or alternative over time. After to the extent that cognities across space and time have very different meanings. The student of semantic change can be seen as part of etymology, anomisiology, sociology, and semantic. A linguistic may describe a linguistic change case in great details, but may as well fail to construct a systematic from change, especially in case of semantic change. Unlike other type of linguistic change like sound or spelling change, semantic change is directly linked to arbitrary culture and social change. Trans making is very strenuous to predicate the direction or depth of this change. Moreover, semantic change has no psychological as, for example, sound change does. The simple type of semantic change is a shift. For instance, the Latin verb revert ultimately from driven at the sort, but has long lost this meaning. But even such an announced case can be classified. A closer look at all change in meaning shows that alteration in meaning can be classified according to type. There are 6 semantic change, namely: Number 1, the meaning extends. A change in meaning extends is a symptom that occurs in a word or lexeme, which first only has a meaning, but then due various factors it has other meanings. For example, in the word brother, at the first it only meant sperut or skandung. Then the meaning developed to anyone who is like blood. As a result, even my uncle's son was called a brother. And number 2, narrowing. Narrowing change are symptoms that occur in a word that initially has a fairly broad meaning. The change to be limited to just one meaning. The English word fudge berlayar originally meant bertamasya. This meaning still exists in France. Due to the passage of the time, the area of the meaning is narrow and only revert to bertamasya lewat laut atau air. The result of this change is that the word can now be applied to fewer things, but can't say much about them. This means that the space is narrow, but the meaning is enriched with additional or new elements, namely the element of traveling through water. When we use the term paper, we can say that development reduced, but the intentions is increased. And number 3, generation. It is a change as a meaning when the new meaning of a word is heard than the old meaning. For example, the word wife is heard that chant. Both have the same meanings as wife. And the last material is direction. It is a change as a meaning when the new meaning of a word is lower than the old meaning. For example, the word pregnant is lower than a pregnant or pregnant. Both have the same meaning as pregnant. I think that's all.
Thank you for watching.
Wassalamualaikum
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 warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.